Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Two Takes with Alex and Tate. And we just saw the divisional round weekend in the NFL. This is on Monday that we're recording, so we saw all the games. We're going to do a little reaction. One of my favorite weekends in sports, honestly. You have eight usually really good teams left in the playoffs at this point, and I thought that was true. I thought all the teams had things that they do well. All of them had their own little faults, but eight really, really good teams, really, really high level. Almost all of them I felt like could have maybe won the Super Bowl literally. And really, really fun. I like the NBA playoffs are maybe my favorite, one of my favorite times a year, but that's because you get good games every day. And as far as just a weekend, it's really hard to beat the divisional round weekend. So yeah. Alex, you got anything for us?
Oh man, I just I always hope for more upsets. Uh,
Yeah.
it's weird that we only got one, but it doesn't really feel like an
It
upset.
doesn't even feel like one to me, too. Yeah, it's like you want to start with that one or end with that one. It's I was kind of thinking that would be
Oh man, so many options. Let's just go chronologically. All right, so we saw
first game
the
was
Texans play the Ravens in Baltimore. Started off looking a little tight. We
yeah,
were starting to ask some questions about Lamar, and he quickly, well, as they say, he heard us talking mess,
right, right.
and decided to respond in the second half. So
Thought
tell
he
me what your thoughts of that game were, Tate.
So let's start with the loser first. Shout out to the Texans, way overachieved this year versus what I thought they might be one of the worst teams in the league, even though I liked CJ Stroud after they drafted him. Nobody thought CJ Stroud was going to be as good as he is. Total home run at the most important position for the Texans. And it looks like they made, I'm not going to call it a home run yet, but a really good hire at head coach. Now, they obviously have some left to be desired as far as the roster goes. I thought missing Tank Dell hurt him in this game. Obviously didn't hurt him in Cleveland that much when they played the Cleveland Browns, but an extra weapon probably wouldn't have been 24 points difference, but it would have helped him at times, I thought, throughout the course of this game, because it was basically all CJ Stroud trying to make plays out of his ass, basically. And Nico Collins is a really good player, but he's not. You need some other pieces around. And that's what we're looking at in Houston. I would feel really, really exceptionally good about this season. Maybe better than any of the other divisional round losers, actually, is how I'd be feeling if I'm Houston, because CJ Stroud is someone to me who could pretty easily sneak into the top five, maybe even top three quarterback conversation really, really quickly next season. I mean, I think this guy is a total superstar. I think and I, what I thought was really important from a Texans standpoint, the moment wasn't too big for CJ Stroud. Now, they had some offensive line issues, they had some false starts, they had some other guys that looked a little nervous, even, but CJ Stroud, I didn't get any of that from him, just me watching it. I thought he played pretty well. And let's call it what it is. Moving on to the Ravens. The Ravens are really good, man. I mean, they are really, really good. They don't have a lot of holes in their roster. And when they get Mark Andrews back, who I think is coming back next week, uh, I mean, talk about a tough out, even for a team like the Kansas City. Lamar is just a hard guy to cover, and he puts so much pressure on the defense. I thought we really saw in that game he's an improved passer, even though the numbers, he didn't really light it up through the air in that game. They didn't need him to. And they ran the ball, and they really were able, especially in the second half, to impose their will on the ground, which is why they are such a scary team that looks like they probably should be the Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl. Now we'll get to the game next weekend, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I think the Ravens are just really, really good across the board. And what we saw is Roquan Smith. Some people did not love that trade when they made that trade in Baltimore, bringing Roquan Smith in. He's kind of the backbone of that defense, and he makes 3 out of 4 plays for him. It seems like is in on most of the tackles, and they're good on the defensive line. They're good at the secondary positions. I mean, they're really, really good across the board. Where That was an offense that put up 45 points against Cleveland. I mean, two of them were pick sixes, but still 31 points against Cleveland, who most people considered a top two defense in the league going into that game. And they lit them up, and they had three offensive points basically. The Texans really, they had that punt return that certainly made the game interesting for a little bit. And to your point, you could feel at halftime there was maybe a smidge of a nervous energy in the Baltimore stands, right? And people had seen Lamar struggle in the past. He was playing a good game, I thought, but not necessarily, like I said, lighting it up, especially in the first half. And then he, in almost as underwhelming fashion as Lamar Jackson can have, was really, really impressive still. And I thought he should should have been scary for any team left in the playoffs to watch that game, where it's like, man, what are we going to do against that guy? Because if you try to spy him with even a linebacker, he's usually too fast, and it almost doesn't even matter, where it's like you might as well blitz that guy. And if you don't blitz him, he's a good enough passer now, that he can kind of sit in that pocket and pick you apart. I thought he had a couple really nice throws throughout the course of the game. And the Ravens looked how they looked all year, which is like the best team in the league. And that's what I kind of thought, where we saw them go into San Francisco and beat the heck out of San Francisco. We saw them beat the heck out of the Dolphins. And I thought that was a good Texans team. After the wild card round, I said CJ Stroud is a scary player and held them to 3 offensive points, totally held them in check. And Lamar getting over the hump in a way where he had not necessarily by the numbers, but Lamar is a lot of eye tests, had what I thought was a really good, if not a great playoff performance. 2 touchdowns on the air, through the air, and 2 on the ground. I believe he's only the 5th player in the history of the NFL to do that in a playoff game. I mean, really, really, really impressive win, I thought, for Baltimore. And just a complete team win where they're well coached, they're great on defense, they have a good scheme on offense, they put Lamar in positions where he can succeed, they put those weapons in positions where they can succeed. And the other guy that I want to give a quick shout out to before I hear from Alex is Zay Flowers changes the dynamic of that team a little bit. Where since Lamar has really been good, like maybe post MVP season, where he's kind of developed more as a passer, they haven't really had that guy at receiver. Mark Andrews is a nice player, but we saw that in Kansas City early in the season, where you still need at least a 2 level receiver, if not a 1B kind of guy. And Zay Flowers is that kind of guy. Zay Flowers finds holes in zones. Zay Flowers can beat man coverage. Really, really a good player. It seems to have good chemistry with Lamar too. So no matter what happens next weekend, the Ravens should feel really encouraged moving forward with Lamar playing as well as he's playing, the defense looking this good, Zay Flowers looking like he's one of the let's say top 20 receivers in the league, which today is really good because there's a lot of really good receivers. I mean, he's changes the offense enough. So yeah, I thought the Ravens were really, really impressive.
Yeah, I really liked how the Ravens played. I'm gonna push back on it. I've been thinking about it a lot because we watched this game and we were kind of going back and forth on CJ Stroud and like how good of a quarterback. And I agree, it looks like a home run at quarterback, but this is a tough league to get quarterback consistency with. And you know, some quarterbacks in their first year they look good because they provide a little bit of spark. And I agree that the way just watching him, you're like, oh, he's making some outstanding throws. But I do think that it's more on the head coach that he's scheming guys open pretty regularly, and they've been able to not put together a huge rushing attack, but enough of one in Houston that you got to respect it. So he's getting a couple more options. Maybe he is like an incredible like seer of the football field. But I'm gonna say that next year, if we see a slump, we can't call him trash, but also unless he performs as well, we cannot start talking about him as one of the top 5. We can't even entertain that idea. I'll give you top
Okay.
10.
Yeah. Okay. I don't disagree because there are people that exist in this world that are like Carson Wentz, who almost won an MVP and then 3 years later couldn't get a team to keep him, right? It's like that does exist in the NFL. So I don't disagree. Will say the eye test, he has that kind of ceiling at least, right? And what makes someone like Mahomes and Burrow, who I'm a big fan of, so special outside of the injuries with Burrow is they do it year in and year out and they do it year in and year out in the postseason. And CJ winning a playoff game, I thought was huge because they didn't have the better roster in either of the games that they played. I thought that was really apparent against Baltimore. And what you said about the run game, they couldn't get a yard carrying the football most of the game against Baltimore. You know what I mean? Where Baltimore was really able to make them one dimensional.
That I mean, but that's like the thing.
That's
That's
the
the
that's the Ravens, and that's why the Ravens are so good. But like you look at the Bills lost a game yesterday where they had over 180 rushing yards. So it's like to give your team the best chance of win, you want to be able to establish that even in the postseason, and that's why the Ravens having the success running the ball. Those are the teams that you view as real elite level contenders usually are kind of dual threat teams that can run the ball and have elite quarterback play at this point of the year, right? Kansas
oh yeah,
City had success. I can't remember. I don't know off the top of my head how many yards they had, but they definitely had success running the football yesterday in that win. Buffalo, like I said, had over 180 yards. San Francisco, I'm sure, had success running the ball. Even the Packers who lost, Aaron Jones had a nice day. I think had 2 touchdowns on the ground and over 100 yards. So establishing that running game. Point being, I agree with your point. We got to keep seeing it from CJ, right? And consistency is what makes you an elite quarterback. It's not the upside. Otherwise, Josh Allen might be the best quarterback in the league, right? Or second best, but he is inconsistent, which is why that's not where I view him.
yeah.
And if CJ can keep it up, then we can start having that conversation. Like, and that's why I threw the little caveat of if he plays like this next year, he will sneak into that conversation pretty quickly. Where it's like, if he starts out September, October, it looks this good, let's have the conversation about him. You know what I mean? But if he starts out and throws 5 picks in the first 2 games, something like that, then that's going to be a little different. Yeah, because we have seen that occasionally in the NFL where guys really fall off after a flash of success almost. But I don't know, man. I like him. He makes some throws that I don't know that there's 3 other quarterbacks in the league that could make, and that's not what you see all the time. He had a couple up the sideline on the right side against that Baltimore defense in tight coverage that were just next level, frankly, throws that you don't see very many guys be able to make, off platform. And the other thing that I love about CJ so far that we've seen is he doesn't give you the turnovers.
That is
And
important. That is
that's
like
like
the important
even
thing.
Jordan Love, who I think we both like a lot. But we talked about Josh Allen. Those guys give you some turnovers. CJ, here's a quick CJ stat just about going back to the regular season, but he's the third guy ever to lead the league in passing yards a game and touchdown to interception ratio. And the other 2 guys were Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady when they won MVPs. So it's like
Yeah,
pretty next level. That's what I'm saying. Like pretty next level what we've seen so far. If he keeps it up, then he really is going to be a high level guy, yeah, to say the least. You know what I mean?
I'm excited to see what he does.
Right.
But you talk about establishing dominance and imposing your will with the run. Christian McCaffrey is played exceptionally well, got wrapped up a few times, but also broke off a few runs. The next game was the Green Bay Packers at San Francisco. What
Right.
did you see?
If I was a Packers fan, which I was kind of rooting for the Packers, admittedly, that would have been about as frustrating of a game to watch as I've ever seen in my life. Because I thought the Packers had every chance to win that game. And if the defensive players for the Green Bay Packers could have caught the ball in that game, they may have won by 2 touchdowns. They had 2 drop pick 6s. One of them was a sure pick 6. One of them was a maybe pick 6, but would have had the ball in about the 30-yard line. That would have ended the game. If either of those 2 things happened, I think it would have ended the game. And the Niners, I was pretty underwhelmed with in a win. And they ended up making some nice plays. And let me stick to the Packers a little bit. Jordan Love, I thought played a really, really, really good game. He had the reason it wasn't a great game is because his last throw. He threw kind of a heave across the middle that frankly I still don't really understand what he was thinking or what he saw or why he it was first down. So that was just a moment got too big for him kind of play, I thought, where it's like, man, just throw it away or run. It's like you had some timeouts, you just needed a field goal to go to overtime. It's like there was a lot of other better options on that play than what he decided to do, which is a shame because he really was, I thought, the best player on the field before that throw happened, where he really, I thought, made some high level throws. You see the difference between a true franchise guy and someone that's not, like maybe who we saw on the other side of the field, definitely some other Desmond Ritter type guys, or even, I think Jordan Love at least has a better upside than Dak Prescott and is more of a who I'd rather have moving forward kind of player over Dak because he makes these off-platform throws, he can improvise, but he also is pretty good, if not very, very good at running that system, delivering the ball on top time when they need him to, checks down to the run sometimes and doesn't audible out of every running play, cough, cough, Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? It's like really plays at a high level, is coachable, I think is really, really encouraging moving forward and definitely has an arm that's of the best in the league, right? It comes off the hand nice. He got some zip on the ball. He can make those throws off his back foot, down the field, which is again, and it's no coincidence that these are the teams that advance and make it far in the playoffs, is because the best quarterbacks usually make it far. And these guys that are playing, most of them make the high level throws, right? It's like Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, who we just talking about as far as the losers of the first two games. Both quarterbacks, I think, look great moving forward. Green Bay, maybe coming up on in the next couple of years, do they have the best receiver core in the league? Because they have three guys that you really like, right? Dobbs kind of is the gets open, finds the holes in the zones, really a smart player, but also has great body control and hands, which it always starts with the hands for those receivers. He makes some tough catches, but seems to have good chemistry with Jordan Love, seems to get open and he's not even their most explosive player. And it's between Reed and Christian Watson. And it's both of them look like they are big play guys. Christian Watson obviously has the size, but Jaden Reed really looks like he's not obviously this good, but kind of cut from the Tyreek Hill mold a little bit. Maybe Jamar Chase, where it's like kind of a smaller, undersized almost receiver, but explosive athlete. And they all seem to have chemistry with Jordan Love, and that's important. And I think that's only going to improve moving forward. And then Christian Watson, who we didn't see as much this season because of injuries, he's the guy that can totally take the top off the defense. And he's 6'5", he runs 4.3. He is a vertical deep threat and one of the freak athletes that we have at receiver in the NFL right now. So they look like they could be just a tough team to guard moving forward to me. And I think they're going to get better. I like the coach, I don't know that I think LaFleur is Harbaugh or Andy Reid or Shanahan, but he is really probably on that outside ring of those guys. It's like, and he could winning some playoff games with Jordan Love and maybe making a conference finals in a couple of years, maybe making the Super Bowl soon. That would get LaFleur in that kind of conversation to me. But I think he does a nice job. I think he gets the most out of that team right now. And that's what you look for out of the head coach, right? Now, San Francisco, we talked about the two drop picks earlier. I'm going to say it. Brock Purdy was unimpressive to me. He had a nice drive at the end of the game, so I want to give him some credit for that. But it's a lot of Brandon Ayuk caught a ball off the top of his shoelaces that wasn't a very good throw that they had a great player make a great play on. McCaffrey taking a little dump off for the first down or just handing it off to him and him getting the first down even at the end of the games. George Kittle getting wide open, right? So even on that last drive, I thought he played and I thought he had a nice drive. I thought he did what the coach asked him to do, which is important. And it's, that is a valuable skill in its own right. but I thought it was pretty underwhelming for the 49ers. And the 49ers, which are a team that we saw just beat the heck out of some teams throughout the course of the regular season, and really at times looked like they were by far and away the best team in the NFL. Looked like they had by far and away the best roster. We saw with one of the pieces missing in Deebo Samuel, they did not look like the same team to me. And the weather wasn't as good. Green Bay has a real defense that can play, not necessarily at elite level, but they rush the passer pretty good. They have a pretty good secondary. They have linebackers who play the run well. It looked like it was a struggle for San Francisco, and I thought they were pretty lucky to get out of that game with a win. And I'm sorry, anyone saying a couple things. For those of you anyone that said Brock Purdy should win MVP of the league, you just, I thought we saw last night, or that was Saturday, I guess, but it's just different. And even though he has the numbers to support that argument sometimes, just watch the games. And even on that nice throw he had to Kittle was a good throw, man. But about 28 starting quarterbacks in the NFL make that throw to Kittle, who's open by 5 yards. It's like, it's just, I think the coach deserves a lot more credit than the quarterback in this situation, which doesn't happen all the time, but it's like it's a great scheme. He does a good job operating it for the most part and really looks really good at times in the regular season. But I thought that was discouraging if I'm the 49ers. And we'll get to the Lions and Bucks next, but the Lions could give them a game. I'm probably not going to pick the Lions to go in there and win. Spoilers. But the Lions could go give them a game. And if Deebo is out, that is a big deal for San Francisco. And we kind of saw that in the regular season, where I think that's when they lost 3 games in a row, is when Deebo Samuel missed some time. They are a different football team when Deebo Samuel's not in the game. And Deebo is not a conventional wide receiver. He's a little different. He's just a football player. It was one of my favorite guys in the league to watch play, really. But the versatility that he brings that offense makes him a whole different animal to try to guard. And he opens things up, I think, for McCaffrey and Kittle and Ayuk and Purdy. And I think everything runs a heck of a lot smoother when Deebo Samuel's at his best versus when he's out. It looked like they were having some trouble moving the ball. So, uh, what did you think about the San Francisco game?
Say, I mean, pretty much the same thing. Yeah, Brock Purdy without the little screens to Debo Samuel
It's
looks
different, right?
not good. Like, yeah, like you said, that low throw to Ayuk, where it's just like I think he had thrown 2 other balls just like straight down at
Right.
receiver feet.
And
And
if
it's
I'm
like,
not mistaken, on the last drive, he threw a ball that hit Green Bay right in the chest that they didn't catch that would have ended the game, basically. So it's like, yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but it was just as unimpressive of a playoff win as I remember almost. I
oh
just
yeah,
I felt less confident in San Francisco to win the Super Bowl after watching that game.
no, San Francisco's not going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're just flatly not, because if you look at who's left, I mean, they're not beating the Ravens. Absolutely not. They're not. They're probably not beating Kansas City. Like,
Yeah.
it's very
Oh,
unlikely
no,
they
right.
beat the city. And Detroit, like,
It's a real team.
it's a real team. I want to see Detroit go to the Super Bowl. Like, I'm pretty disappointed in the Bucks from the game last night, but if
Yeah, do
they
you
win,
want you want to go
if
first on the Bucks game here?
oh man, I mean, what is there to really say? The Bucks come in with, what was it, 70 million dead cap. Like, this year they were supposed to be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes.
That's right. Yeah.
They signed Baker, who nobody really wanted, for $4 million with some incentives. They still have Mike Evans, which is nice. They still have Chris Godwin, which is nice, but they're moving their right tackle over to learn a completely other position, like a mirrored position in left tackle. They've got all of these rookies on the defensive side. Some people are getting older. Their center goes down before the season even starts is just out. So they put a guy who never really played center down there to like throw high snaps to Baker all year.
Can I just interject real quick? That hurt him yesterday too. Or yeah, that was finally yesterday. Yeah, that hurt him. The center, they had a hard time blocking in Detroit. I mean,
Yeah,
a really hard time. And I thought that was the difference in the game, actually.
yeah. So the Bucks lost in the trenches, absolutely
Yeah.
lost in the trenches. Um, Malk, Cody Malk, their right guard, I think. He's a rookie and he's gonna get better. He's already gotten a lot better.
Yeah,
Like you
I
see
agree.
some of their rushing has gotten a lot better, and their pass protection hasn't been the worst, but they just didn't have the players. They just
I
didn't have
agree.
the money to have the players. Now, credit to Jared Goff. He's looking awesome there. Amon-Ra St. Brown for Detroit is a true stud. Sam Laporta is the next Travis Kelsey. I swear. He just gets open,
It's really
big,
good.
fast. He turns
Right.
like he takes a hit.
Runs
It's
after the catch for a tight end, you know?
Yeah, he's great. It's really impressive to see somebody like that young do that much damage.
Totally
Jameer,
agree.
Jameer Gibbs is a stud.
Right.
Uh, and for not having the players to keep up with these real championship contending teams, the Buccaneers, you know, they still had three players go over 1,000 yards, like Godwin and Mike Evans, but both went over 1,000 yards reception, and Rashad White was over 1,000 all-purpose
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah.
They're still really a lot better than we anybody would have ever expected. And it's gotta really suck if you're the Saints because they're spending a lot of money for Derek Carr to
Right. Yeah, that's
do
rough.
anything like that. And the Panthers, I mean, you got Bryce Young, who was didn't even look like a backup quarterback this year. Atlanta Falcons, maybe they get Kirk Cousins and Bill Belichick. Maybe they don't and just have to
Right.
take Desmond Ritter back out there and like hope to God something happens. But like I think next year we re-signed some of the key players, let a couple of players go. I know Devin White is probably going to be gone from the team because KJ Brett kind of took his job as a rookie, and that's not what you want to see. But like, it's you got to earn your keep in the NFL. If you're not doing your part, then you're not staying on the team. Um, but I was happy with how the Bucks competed. I thought they could have won the game. Thought there were a couple of NFL officiating things that weren't like it's been exceptionally bad this
It's
year.
just frankly been bad from an officiating standpoint this year. And
It,
Alex knows this. I hate when people complain about officiating in almost any sport. It's like I think it almost always ends up being even by the end of the game. It has been bad in the NFL this season. I mean, really, there has been just a lot of calls, man, that you're scratching your head over, you know?
well, it seems it feels like, and I hate to like talk about because I don't really believe that officials like are purposefully putting their fingers on the scale in either direction, but it's definitely seemed this year like the favorites in any game not gonna get like just freebie ghost calls for themselves,
I would
but
call it the benefit of the doubt, though. It's
they're
like
not.
they're definitely getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I
they're
yeah,
be under a microscope, and there were a couple of like really bad missed calls for that should have been on the Lions that they just or
sure.
like weird spotting problems like all of the Green Bay game, the officials just kept on spotting them like a yard short of where the actual spot should have been, and like egregious to the
Yeah,
point
that's weird.
whenever NFL announcers are saying that is a horrible spot multiple times a game, you know that there's something wrong. So I'm excited for what happens next year with the Bucks. I think Canales stays. I want Todd Bowles gone. Like honestly, I would rather,
There's some
you
good
know,
candidates out there this year too, and that's the
yeah,
thing. It's like, and
right.
you look at Tampa, man, just to kind of touch on a few things. That's a pretty good job now. And I thought the biggest question for Tampa going into the year is what does the future at the quarterback position look like in Tampa Bay? And I think Baker answered that for the time being, right? It's like I don't know that I'd give Baker the Patrick Mahomes contract for 10 years. I don't know that I'd give him a 5-year deal, but he's probably going to get a 3-year deal. And I think you feel really good about that if you're Tampa Bay, and he plays really well with the right pieces around him, like a lot of quarterbacks in the league. But Baker always can throw it, and I totally agree, man. I thought they really overachieved this season with the dead cap that you talked about, putting together and piecing together a roster that was really competitive until basically the last throw of the game. It was kind of on the board. I thought they played a really good game. They are missing linemen on both sides of the ball, I think. And that's what I would prioritize in the draft and in free agency if I'm Tampa Bay, is just in the trenches, because to your point, the Lions totally dominated that aspect of both sides of the ball, where the Lions, I want to give the Lions a lot of credit for the way they have put together that roster. Because when you bring in Jared Goff, what do you know you have to do when Jared Goff is your quarterback? You have to protect him above
Yeah,
all else.
yeah.
Because if you don't protect Jared Goff, you may be the worst team in the league. But if you protect him, you're going to be looking at the conference championship game like they are. And they prioritize that offensive line. And Tampa all night could not get any pressure rushing 4 guys. And a lot of time when they blitz, they didn't get a lot of pressure either, to be honest. So, and that's just because the Lions have stacked that offensive line, and they are really, really an elite group up front. Then they have hit on some great draft picks recently. We talked about St. Brown, who to me is about the 6th best receiver in the league at this point. There's 5 guys I could give you real quick. Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown. But maybe not even AJ Brown, frankly. AJ Brown seems to be a little bit of a diva. I definitely think St. Brown's a better locker room guy and just about as good anyway. But he is really, really a high level player and someone that can change your franchise if Jared Goff is the quarterback. Does that make sense? Where it's like usually it's the quarterback that changes the franchise, but when you have someone like Jared Goff, needs that outlet. St. Brown can make tough catches. He gets open almost no matter what the coverage looks like. Really, really a high level player. And then, you brought up these 2 guys. Gibbs and Laporta are awesome and are basically Pro Bowl level players as rookies. And Laporta is, we've talked about this off, recording, but I don't know that people realize how special Laporta's season as a tight end has been, because tight ends usually do not come in the NFL ready to be an NFL tight end. It usually takes them at least a year or two to kind of get their footing, learn how to play at this level, learn how to block at this level where they can stay in the game. And that Laporta is doing what he is doing as a rookie is really, really one of the most impressive seasons we've seen in sports from a rookie in a long time to me. And like I said, I just thought they were really impressive. And Baker played good. He played a nice game. Mike Evans, frankly, is one of the most frustrating players to watch in the NFL to me, because he's like not dropping the ball away from being one of the top 3 receivers in the league, but he drops the ball. And like the pass that he popped up in the middle was a huge play in the game and kind of put the Tampa in a hole. And then they really just never could get enough stops. And I thought the Lions were just able to run the ball. Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. One of the most explosive backs in the league already as a rookie, and someone that I think is going to get even better, and become one of the league leaders in rushing year in and year out. And yeah, I mean, I agree with almost everything that you said. Tampa played a great game. They shouldn't have even been there. Most people, myself included, thought they'd miss the playoffs. Won the division, won a playoff game against the defending Super Bowl runner-up, by the way, which they were falling apart, but that's still a good season for them. And the Lions are just one of the more complete teams in the league. And we talked about the offensive line. They have good cover corners in the secondary, at least one or two, and then Aiden Hutchinson's a heck of a player on that defensive line. Really almost an unblockable player, and he's
Oh,
very young.
you gotta try to block it. That was the most frustrating thing. Is like
I think they
that.
tried. I promise you they're trying.
No, like, did you
I like
see
double him, right?
three sacks where it was just like totally free runner,
Yeah.
and
I know.
we're like
Yeah.
Hutchinson. It was
Right.
like, what are we doing here? But no,
Yeah,
no
you would
disrespect.
think you'd want to put a body on that guy,
You
You would
think
think, right?
no? Total respect. The Lions are a very complete team. I
Right.
think. I think I remember looking like 6 or 8 weeks ago, Zach Ertz, gets released from the Cardinals, and I was like, man, Zach Ertz on this Buccaneers team would
Yeah.
be really, really good because I love that Kate Otten has come alive as of late, but he's just not like I don't know. I don't trust him to catch the ball either. He feels like a tight end Mike Evans.
Yeah,
Is that
it kind of
is that
yeah, I agree. I don't know that he's needs to be your best tight end on the roster. He's he had a nice game. He's a nice player, but that's a position you may upgrade in free agency, right? And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't. What a cool story for Detroit. And I don't care who you are, you have to be somewhat happy for the Detroit Lions, right? And Jared Goff, total redemption arc where, he gets slant, just totally thrashed by his old head coach in public, and like really got ran out of town in Los Angeles for not winning that Super Bowl, and that he's back to the conference championship game. It's really a cool story as an individual from the Jared Goff standpoint. And then just, the Lions, last time they won a playoff game was before I was born, right? Like, I mean, it's been a long damn time since they've been this good. And just really cool that they're able to put together this kind of whole redeem team almost, and Dan Campbell is a little bit of a quirky coach, but a heck of a likable guy, and just really a cool story for Detroit. That cool moment that they got to host two playoff games. I'd love if they wouldn't beat San Francisco. I mean, Detroit going to the Super Bowl, unless you're a diehard San Francisco fan, how can you not be rooting for Detroit at this point in the season? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's I'm on the bandwagon after the Bucks got
Right.
taken out. I just want to see Detroit win it, mostly because I want to watch the city of Cleveland start watching these teams whittle away. The teams without any Super Bowls. The Buffalo Bills.
Right.
And they find their quarterback, they get their head coach, and the Lions doing it 2.5 hours away before you with like less time with their built roster.
Right.
It's just like I live for
So
Cleveland.
petty, man. So petty.
He's sad. I live for it.
Right.
Uh, but yes,
Yeah.
I
Okay. Just biggest loser of the weekend, Cleveland Browns, man, pretty easily. Detroit going to the conference championship game. Baker made the divisional round and played a good game, and they didn't win, but I thought it looked really good. And he is back to looking like there was a couple year hiatus from this. He looks like a starter in the league.
he definitely I would say he's top 15 right now. I want to see how he does.
I'll do my list later. He's very close. Yeah, he's very close.
Okay. But yeah, so Detroit, your neighbor, is
Right.
playing for a spot in the Super Bowl. The Ravens are playing for a spot in the Super Bowl.
LA division, who's not going anywhere.
Joe Burrow's still in Cincinnati that you've got to deal with. If
The Texans, we talked about CJ Stroud needing to do it for another year, but it's like, you see that you can draft the guy, it's like, man, it's just, yeah, biggest loser I thought was Cleveland of the weekend, maybe, but
Cleveland might be the biggest loser of this entire year.
even though they made the playoffs. No, I can't go that far.
They
I
made the playoffs without their $230 million quarterback.
Okay, man. Carolina was the worst team in the league and don't have their own pick, and they drafted Bryce Young and they traded DJ Moore and Caleb Williams for a guy that's probably not NFL. Like, okay, like not to be too mean, and like I don't hate Bryce Young, and like liked Carolina, it's like it seems like a nice place. Like, I think they got a cool mascot, but it's like they got to be the biggest losers this season. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fair. All right. So Tate, I know you've been waiting to talk about this.
Okay.
This will be the last thing we talk about. Playoff Pat goes into New York, goes into Buffalo, says, throw all your snowballs. I don't care. I'm going to throw touchdowns and win this game.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So I'm gonna start with the Bills because I thought Josh Allen played a really good game. And I know like there's some people that are like, man, he missed the throw in the end zone and did this. I thought he played a really nice game. And it just reminds me of what guys ran into playing against Michael Jordan, where it's like, Karl Malone and John Stockton never could beat Michael Jordan, even though they were great all time players. Charles Barkley never could beat Michael Jordan, even though he's maybe one of the top 25 players, maybe even top 20 to some people all time, and Josh Allen, I thought played a really good game. I thought the Bills played a good game. We already talked about the rushing earlier today, but, James Cook, great, I think star running back, looks like he's got all the talent in the world. He catches the ball, which is a good fit when you're playing with a quarterback as good as Josh Allen. He runs in between the tackles. He's got the speed to bounce it outside. I thought they are using him better later in the year. Josh Allen played a good game. He ran the ball. He made some crazy first downs with his legs. And, the touchdown he had in the corner to Shakir was one of the best throws of the season, really. I mean, on a think third and goal from like the 13, makes they get the touchdown. So Bills, I want to give them some credit because they played a good game, but that's what makes it even more heartbreaking. It's like almost would have been easier if they got their ass kicked by 30 points, right? Because this was supposed to be the year to get the Chiefs. And we even said the same thing last year to a lesser degree, but the whole season for the Chiefs, everyone's been saying, what's wrong with the offense? Well, the offense looked pretty damn good for Kansas City yesterday. And when you have a player like Patrick Mahomes, I think it is so hard to bet against him when the stakes are higher because he has that extra gear that he gets into. And we see it with a lot of the greats like Tom Brady, talked about Michael Jordan across sports reference, the Mamba mentality people talked about with Kobe. I think Mahomes totally fits that mold and him winning, we'll see what happens this weekend, but it's adding to the aura that is Patrick Mahomes that goes beyond just him being a great player. There's kind of a fear where Buffalo at the end of that game looked like it was more concerned about giving the ball back to Mahomes than it was about getting the lead, because that's how much fear he strikes into. And it's not just Buffalo, it's anybody at this point in the season. That's just a healthy fear of Patrick Mahomes because you've seen him do it time and time again. And this is now 6 for 6 making the conference championships for Patrick Mahomes, which is just one of the most impressive things we've seen to start a career. And the Chiefs, pretty good on defense, but frankly, I thought they had things fall against them, and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if Buffalo makes that kick, maybe, man, the Chiefs were going to win that game probably in regulation, to be honest. It's like if you don't think that was at least on the board, they had 2 timeouts and a minute and a half left or minute 45 left. It's like based on what we saw all day, I think it's it was inevitable that the Chiefs were going to go down, kick a field goal, win the game if they needed to. You know what I mean? And like, I just don't think you can understate how good Mahomes is, and it's just so fun to watch. And that we have that guy in the league now, just time and time again, kind of making off balance throws. But it's just when the moment is the biggest is when he's at its best, and that is really, really rare air. And I saw something today, I think on First Things First, that was basically like Mahomes in the playoffs is better than any other MVP quarterback we've seen over the last 10 years from a statistical standpoint. It's like him in the playoffs. Mind you, that's when the defenses are the best, and that's when the intensities ratcheted up. That is when he absolutely picks teams apart. And Buffalo just kind of ran into a juggernaut. And to be honest, they played a good game and they were a fumble on the half yard line away from it not really being a good ending, even, you know what I mean? Kind of being anticlimactic again. And if you're the Chiefs, you know, moving forward, even if Baltimore, who's really good, ends up winning that game next weekend, you're gonna be fine. And they've kind of moved past the questioning them in the regular season to me. I know I thought that would have happened after they won the Super Bowl last year without Tyreek Hill, but people still had nothing but questions for Kansas City all season. I think they've totally moved past that, where you're just going to have to chalk them up as a real threat come the postseason, unless they miss the postseason entirely. You know, kind of no matter what the team looks like. When you have the coach, when you have the quarterback, and really when you have the quarterback, it's just you can't count them out, man. And I think Baltimore's a better team. I think Baltimore's having a great season. I don't know that I would bet against Mahomes next weekend. I'm just gonna say it. It's like I think Baltimore's a 3 point favorite. I heard next weekend, maybe 3.5. Is that right? Let me see real quick.
I think that
Three
sounds
and a
about
half. Three and a
yeah.
half. Yeah. And I don't if I was gonna advise anyone, I would not bet against Patrick Mahomes in that game. It's like you
No.
make it beat, they're not gonna win it every year. Nobody wins it every year, right? But them getting to the conference championship seems almost like a sure thing. And if you're Buffalo, the problem if you're Buffalo today is what do you do moving forward? Because you know, it's frankly it's hard to ask Josh Allen to play a lot better than he played yesterday. And it's, you know, and they had some nice pieces around. And like I said, they are running the ball well. You know, Stephon Diggs had a big drop, but it would have been a hard catch that, you know, wouldn't have necessarily won him the game anyway. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you're running into right now, where what do you do from a Buffalo standpoint? Did you try to bring in even Harbaugh, you know, see if he'd be interested where you can kind of develop even more of a run game and try to take the ball totally out of Mahomes' hands in the playoffs? But they just seem to kind of have their number, and that'd be really, really frustrating from a Buffalo standpoint. But yeah, the legend of Mahomes, if they could somehow win it this year again, I mean, like we'd really, really start getting into rare air, not across all sports as far as the level of player that he is, and kind of like I said, it kind of goes above what he does on the field, where there's just kind of this feeling, and the only thing, it's like Michael Jordan, really, you know, and Michael Jordan was kind of there's just this feeling you got when Michael Jordan played. It kind of Kobe, but not it wasn't quite the same with Kobe to me. You know, Jordan especially, and is one of the things is the only difference between really him and LeBron. And we'll talk about that maybe in the offseason or before the Super Bowl or something like that, why I like Jordan more. But it's just this innate sense that you get when they're playing in these big games where it's like, man, there's no way the other team's actually gonna win, right? It's like when you're watching that game, it's like felt bad for Buffalo kind of because like, man, Buffalo not gonna win this game. You know, you knew it kind of after the first drive. I was like, man, Buffalo's in trouble. It's like it's 7-3, Buffalo's in the lead, and it's like Buffalo's in trouble, man. It's like I don't think they're gonna be able to do it, and so that's why. Yeah, I just think it's really difficult for these teams when there's the guy in the league, right? And if you have someone, if you don't have them, it's just going to be frustrating, I think, moving forward, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think I think you're in that weird danger zone as Buffalo where because you're so good, you're going to keep on running into this wall. And that wall does not like this was supposed to be the easiest time to break through that wall.
Supposed to be when they're vulnerable, and you had them in Buffalo this year, man. You know, it's like you're never going to get that game in Buffalo very often. It's like you got them at home.
Yeah. So like I don't know, like Jacksonville or something. Jacksonville, if they met Kansas City in the playoffs, probably play. I would feel better about like maybe Jacksonville can win one. You know, maybe they can steal one because they haven't been like heartbroken by
Right.
like
And it's like,
every
you
year.
could you could feel it on that last drive with Buffalo, man, where it's like, God, something's gonna happen. You know, it's like you just knew it's like something's gonna happen, man. It's
It's
like you just could feel it. And it's just this weird thing that happens in sports sometimes where you just know it in your bones a little bit. You know, it's like Buffalo, you got a great chance to go down and win the game, and you're not gonna do it. You know what I mean? It's like something's gonna happen. Even if you score, it's not gonna be enough. And I'm sorry about it, but it's just not gonna be enough, you know?
and that's the thing. And that's like where you gotta do something. You gotta almost do something completely drastically different. because you have
I
to
don't disagree. Yeah, it's like
buy it. You have to get all of your players who have just been torn to shreds by Patrick
right,
Mahomes for year after year
right,
after year. You have to get those guys to completely trash what's just happened, which means you have to go in a completely different direction. Like you gotta be like, no, we're gonna be a defensive, we're gonna take a Tomlin style approach where we're gonna run it on you and we're
right,
gonna be defensive. And oh, by the way, Josh Allen can still make any throw and can
right.
also like you have to
Well, that's
completely.
how the Steelers won it with Ben Roethlisberger. Basically, it was like, okay, we're gonna basically hit teams in the mouth on defense and make them hate playing us, and we're gonna run the ball, and Ben Roethlisberger is gonna make 4 great plays a game.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
less than that a lot of time. Maybe 1 or 2 great plays a game.
like, but you have to do that if you're the Bills, because if you devote one more year of this Sean McDermott, like we're gonna ask Josh Allen to kind of light him up and have him go out on runs, and it's gonna be electrifying, and we're gonna get some speed on the offense. We're gonna have these two tight ends who are more receiver than tight end. Like
This,
no, you
I don't think they'll do this. I don't see how you bring McDermott back, knowing the obstacles you have in the AFC. And it's not like he hasn't done a really good job. And like that's one of the situations where it's like kind of was not even his fault. You know what I mean? I hated the fake punt call that they kind of got bailed out on
he
from
should
their own
be
30.
fired for that one. That one
I
call
hated
specific.
that call. Yeah, but it's like I think to your point, to get that team to believe that they can beat the Chiefs, you're almost going to have to bring someone else in, right? It's like I just think if they run it back, they're doomed to get beat by Kansas City in the playoffs next year. Just kind of what it feels like. And yeah, I think it's a tough situation because the Buffalo's really good and they've been really good under Sean McDermott. But like we talked about like I really am disappointed the Cowboys are just going to run everything back again. And it's like that's kind of how I would feel if I was Buffalo, where it's like as good as they've been, I would still be a little disappointed if they just ran it back and kind of did the same thing again this next year.
Well, the Cowboys are an unserious football team. Like it's
Shot
just
right. Okay, yeah. We don't have to talk about the Cowboys anymore. That's enough. We can move on. I'm
well,
so
the thing with McDermott that you don't want to see is like the Tomlin thing, where it's like you get really good and then you just start the slow
right.
decline, where it's just like every year is good, but
Right.
it's not doing anything.
Right.
It's and you the money, it's too much money to like not try to go. Like you either have to have a we're winning the Super Bowl this year or we're winning the Super Bowl by the end of this 3-year run. Like we're
Yeah.
rebuilding, we're establishing, and then we're running with it.
Yeah.
Like there
And
has to be
yeah.
a 3-year maximum plan, and the Bills are not getting it done right now
Right.
as it works right now. So, congratulations to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Congratulations to
And
Holmes. He's a special player. We all knew that.
just quickly, the Bills, you got to make some at least some roster changes. I think you got to get rid of Stephon Diggs. It kind of the same situation Philly's in with AJ Brown, where like kind of the diva receivers can work for a year or two, but it's like I would move on from Diggs. And then the other major mistake they made as an organization was the Von Miller deal. And I like Von Miller. He was, when Denver won the Super Bowl, which is a long time ago now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but it's like he was awesome, and even when the Rams won it, he was great. But he was a total non-factor yesterday, and they signed him thinking that he was going to be the difference in this game. You know what I mean? It's like they signed him thinking, okay, if we get the Chiefs at home, Von Miller is going to make a play or two that's going to win us. This is going to be the difference in the game, and he wasn't. And when you're going against Goliath or the Michael Jordan, you gotta have those kind of moves hit. Frankly, it's like there's really almost no room for error. It's like from an organizational and in the game. It's like the Bills played a pretty damn good game, and it wasn't going to be. Like I said, it was like a fumble away from not even being that close by the end of it. Really, it's like they're kind of lucky to have that ball even in position to miss a kick that was maybe sent it to overtime. If the Chiefs didn't score. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of ifs that were required for them to win the game, even though I thought they played pretty good.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing is they can play very well. They can force some mistakes to happen.
It's like,
But
man,
just, like you said, they make that kick, great. So they made the kick, and then a minute and a half with two timeouts,
like
15 with two timeouts. You just know
you just know. And it's like almost would
is
have been worse for them if they had made it because it's like then you're gonna lose on a walk-off field goal with no time left. It's like that's not better than what happened.
it's just bad. It's just bad. So yeah.
And then
All right. So who do you got for? Let's make these predictions quick because we've been talking for a while, and
yeah,
I'm sure people have enjoyed it. But
right.
NFC,
Okay, I'm gonna take quickly both road teams. I didn't realize I was gonna say that until just now. I was really leaning I was honestly leaving the other way in both games until just now when I looked at it. I was like, man, I think the Lions are going to go in there and I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. The San Francisco defense line is not playing as good as they were in years past. Chase Young is a big name. Frankly, he's not playing that good anymore. Doesn't really he makes a couple plays here and there, but he's not a superstar. It's like he's not the
he fell off pretty hard, pretty
yeah,
fast.
he's not the kind of he's not as good as his name is anymore. He's one of these guys, and I think the Lions are gonna kind of have their way in the trenches, and I think we're gonna see them go in and pull the a big upset, and then Kansas City, if you want to call it an upset, I think they're going to go beat them. I think, like I said, kind of the legend of Mahomes that goes even beyond his play on the field is going to continue to grow this season and with another trip to the Super Bowl. And I think we're going to get Lions Chiefs. What a fun game, man. You get the franchise that never is good against someone that's chasing Tom Brady. You know what I mean? It's like I think that's really going to be that would be a really fun Super Bowl, I think. And
How
one that
far,
I'd be rooting for the Chiefs in. But if the Lions won, like how would you feel bad if the Lions did it?
I would feel amazing if the Lions got their first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like that would be.
Oh, we know. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, okay, so haven't been very many upsets. Like we saw three that were one of them wasn't the first weekend of the playoffs, and we only saw one.
Right.
It makes it hard for me to take both road teams.
Yeah.
Uh,
I say
but
that thinking I'm probably gonna be wrong on one of the games, but it's like I at least think both road teams have a real good shot. You know?
I do believe that the Lions are going to really expose Brock
Yeah.
Purdy. I think the Brock
Can
Purdy.
I can I am I allowed to say that I think if Debo doesn't play the Lions, when if he does play the Lions, probably lose in a pretty close game. Is that a cop out answer, or can I say that?
Not really a cop out answer. That's a fair one. That's a fair one. But I still think the Lions. Therefore, I'm taking the Lions. I think the Lions go and win outright. Yeah. Woo! Um, but it is also very hard for me to bet against Patrick Mahomes.
As good as I think Baltimore is, man, I thought Buffalo was really good too, and I think Baltimore is awesome. But what I think could happen and what we saw kind of in Buffalo is if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, which it's almost definitely going to be a close game in the fourth quarter, it's going to get a little tight in Baltimore, I think, and maybe Lamar throws a pick, and I just think Kansas City is going to do it, man. I just think they're going to end up going back.
I'm interested to see what happens. I'm gonna take Lions and Ravens.
Mine's right.
Not no,
Probably get back.
Lions. That's my Super Bowl.
That'd be
Just
fun too. Well, then it's
but
kind of a win-win with Lamar and Detroit. It's like either team going to kind of get.
yeah. But I mean, if the NFL is scripted, having the very first game of the year and the very last game of the year be
Wouldn't that be
be
something? Yeah.
yeah,
Wouldn't
that'd be
that be
pretty.
something?
like I don't know what would happen because that
Right.
one I really don't know what would happen. Like if it were
Hey,
Lions,
man. Like, be probably a real good game, you know?
that like Dan Campbell.
Right.
I mean, we know he's got big old balls, no fear in his game, which I respect. All right, so this has been two takes with Alex and Tate. Tate, anything you want to say?
No. Hopefully we get two good games. I'm kind of rooting for two good games above all else. Like you want them to be interesting in the fourth quarter at this point in the season.
Yep. All
But
right.
thank you all for listening. This has been episode 14, and we will see everybody soon.